Up next, race number 2 for MotoTeam. And let's all just take a breather after that last chaotic race. But, well, with MotoTeam, you never know what you're going to get, especially with 2 classes out on the track. Phil Mapplebook taking the pole position, Sean Whittaker in P2. Man, oh man, it's going to be interesting watching those guys, because MotoTeam, it's not always about neck-and-neck racing, Zach Sweeney. It's more about just keeping it on the track, because, again, with 2 different classes, it can get very, very tricky and very, very interesting between everyone.
Can do indeed. Already some issues before they've even set off. Who is that? Unfortunately, whatever's happened, they're not able to get going for the sighting lap. So that is a bit of a shame for them, of course. Quick reminder as to how things racked up in race 1. Phil Mapplebook took the open win, his first one of the season, ahead of Sean Whittaker, who took the standard win. Team ACME Racing completed the overall podium, and Guy Kite completed that standard podium as well. But coming into this race, an unfortunate start before the lights had even gone out. Run through the grid then, a lot to do before we get going. It's Sean Whittaker, Guy Kite and Team ACME Racing 1, 2 and 3. Phil Mapplebook from Ben O'Keefe and Team Owning the Badger, that's row 2. Harrison O'Keefe from Gary O'Keefe, Madison MARTLEW, the 9th rider to take to the track. But we have to emphasise it's MotoTeam. It's all about the bike, not just the person that is on it. There is the bike that scores points. We have seen an example of this. Kieran Evans and Charlie Ems have shared the 231 bike thus far this season, the bike that took a couple of podiums at Lid in the MotoTeam Open class, and are going to be looking to maybe get some more today. In fact, actually, I don't think the 231 is going to be starting this race, so that's a bit of a shame. But nonetheless, 11 laps of racing action. You're tuning in live, of course, here on FAB-Racing. And just in time for the beginning of MotoTeam's second race of the weekend. Just making sure everything's all right, you know, making sure they're lined up in their correct grid slots. Of course, there's the staggered start, so they're not taken to the boxes. There's a circle with their number in, and they have to have their front tyre inside that circle to be deemed a fair grid start as such ahead of the race. Interesting stuff, and it's all eyes to the light. Sean Whittaker, Guy Kite, Team ACME Racing, race 2 for MotoTeam gets going, and a great start there from the number 8. Clear view ahead of him, but not enough to get the lead into turn number 1. Sean Whittaker then leads through 1, then 2, then 3 towards the first hairpin. Easy stuff then for Sean Whittaker on that 01 machine, able to stay in front of Team ACME Racing, who of course did take their first wins a couple of weeks ago when we took 2-3 Sisters. Then of course it's the 19 of Phil Mapplebook, race winner of race 1, looking to extend that margin and looking to do exactly what he did this time yesterday. Battles all the way through as well, but there is the 19. Look at the straight line speed towards Stewart around the outside. We've seen before it's the advantageous line, but the number 8 is able to stay in front and keep that second place for now. Meanwhile, Sean Whittaker able to extend the margin up in front as the 19 looks to the inside, but not enough towards St John's, then into Sunny Ben's, that quick dip to the left. After the first lap, it's looking to be a fairly decent race, it must be said, because that competition from Sean Whittaker, ACME Racing and Mapplebook, don't forget, there are technically two separate races going on. We've got the standard and the open. Whittaker and ACME, the 01 and number 8 machine, 1 and 2, as you can see there, heading into the hairpin. They're in the standard class. Phil Mapplebook is in the open, so he's already winning his race, but you always want to go for more. You always want to win in the overall. Sean Whittaker is doing exactly that and trying to extend that margin very, very nicely indeed. And that gap is looking very, very pretty after just 2 laps.
It is indeed there for Sean Whittaker. Team ACME Racing, meanwhile, holding on to P2. Those two, of course, still fighting in the standard class. Phil Mapplebook leading the way in open on number 19 at the moment. He's in, well, it's quite a way ahead of any of the other open guys. They're all a bit further down the field. We've got Ox Racing currently 7th overall, Gary O'Keefe P8 overall, Ian Jackson P9. Those are our 4 open contenders. Meanwhile, Ben O'Keefe, he's on the podium in the standard class, which is great to see for there. There we do see the number 8 of Team ACME Racing making its way through some traffic. That was the 119 of Team ERNIE. No, that was not actually. That is Phil Mapplebook that he's fighting with. I do apologise. That, of course, is for overall position. Those two are in different classes. The number 8 in the standard, the number 19 in the open class. This is just for personal pride and glory. maybe the number 8 needs to get a little bit worried, because just behind those two is the 64 of Ben O'Keefe, and he is also in the standard class, and maybe fancies going up into second on the podium in that category. So we'll wait and see how it's going to unfold. Mappelbeck has worked his way around Team ACME Racing. If the 8 gets held up, he's going to have the 64 to contend with in his own class, could be losing out even more positions.
Yeah, exactly that. Still got 8 laps to go at the line, by the way, and quick rundown as to how things are going. Sean Whittaker, Team ACME Racing, that's the standard 1 and 2, and the overall 1 and 2 as well. Phil Mappelbeck leads the Open and is third overall. Ben O'Keefe completes that standard podium of Harrison O'Keefe, as we've said, closing in about 4.7 seconds back on the fight for the podium. Team Ernie the Badger is only half a second off that fighting for position. Ox Racing, Ian Jackson, Gary O'Keefe, Madison Martlew completes the 10-rider field that we've got ahead of 8 laps of racing still to run. So no DNFs thus far, no issues thus far, just great racing all the way through. Phil Mappelbeck, though, it's going to be a tough ask. 2.5 seconds if he wants to repeat that race win from yesterday.
Yeah, a bit of a gap. Of course, he's going to be winning in the open class as long as he keeps it on the black stuff, because he's so far ahead of anyone else in that open category. But if he wants the overall win, he's got to try and eat into Sean Whittaker's advantage of 2.5 seconds at the line last time. There we see the 65 of Harrison O'Keefe, who actually looks like he's overtaken Ben O'Keefe. Is that, or is that Gary who's worked his way? No, that's Gary who's worked his way up to the back of him. Well, the 65 even. No, that's Ox Racing. We've got 2 65s out on track. That's confusing. We've got Ben O'Keefe on the, or Harrison O'Keefe on the 65 in the standard class, and then Ox Racing, who's new this weekend, in the 65 on the open class. Try more numbers to try and figure out. So this is Ox Racing and Gary O'Keefe, P8 and P9. Both in the open class. They are fighting for the final podium place, currently going the way of Ox Racing on that yellow liveried bike as they come down into McRae's and then make their way up to Erdale's hairpin. Trying, problem for Ox Racing. Maybe an issue. It looks really slow coming off the corner. Is everything okay with the bike? It looks like it's all been sorted now, but there was definitely an issue there for Ox Racing, because Gary O'Keefe has just sailed by coming out of McRae's. Very, very bizarre.
Yeah, it seemed to be, I'm not entirely sure if it was just a no power issue, maybe a missed gear, something like that. Maybe the gear was engaging, but he just didn't accelerate off of that first hairpin. And unfortunately, lost a position thanks to it. And of course, that is for class position. Ox Racing, Gary O'Keefe both in that MotoTeam Open. 5 laps to go at the line. Sean Whittaker leads Phil Mappelbeck by 2.8 and looks secure. Both respective race victories, the standard and the Open. Team ACME Racing, of course, completing the overall podium. There they are, but Ben O'Keefe knocking on the door, a quarter of a second behind.
Yeah, Ben O'Keefe looking to try and make his way through, try and get up to second in class and third overall. The O'Keefes have really become a staple of MotoTeam over the last years. Of course, they really embody the MotoTeam spirit in that, it is, as bad as it sounds, it's cheap and cheerful racing. This is the cheapest form of motorsport that is available in the UK. You buy a used bike for as little as you can, you whack a race fairing on it, and then you take it out on track. And that's exactly what the O'Keefes did. They never raced before they turned up, they started racing, started burning up, showing their faces, showing character. And now, they're beloved members of the paddock, they're race winners, they're internet famous after throwing away wins on final corners and things like that. And, let's see if Ben O'Keefe can add to the O'Keefe family's heritage and make his way up into second in the standard class. From Team ACME Racing, at number 8 is tenacious. It's been at the front of the MotoTeam grid for years and years. So he'll be trying to hold on for the time being. Sean Whittaker leads overall and leads the way in the standard class. Phil Mappelbeck second overall, leads the way in open. Then it's Team ACME Racing and Ben O'Keefe second and third in standard, third and fourth overall. And it's Harrison O'Keefe in P4 in standard. Ian Jackson is second in open, followed by Team Ernie the Badger. That is fifth in standard. Then there's Gary O'Keefe, third in open. Ox Racing, fourth in open. And Madison Martlew at the back at the moment, unfortunately for them, in P10 overall. They are 6th in the open class. So we've got 4 laps left to run in this race. looks like Team ACME Racing, the number 8, just opening up a bit of a gap there to Ben O'Keefe on the 64, just getting a bit of breathing room, getting a bit of space behind him. But crucially, Ben O'Keefe isn't going away. He's still there, still putting the pressure, still maybe just filling that space in the back of Team ACME Racing's heads.
Yeah, exactly that. And just being there is enough sometimes to put the pressure on. That gap, of course, is closing. Did want to touch on that standard championship. Sean Whittaker, Team ACME Racing, coming into this weekend, only 8 points separating them. They've been jostling for race wins, of course, all season long. Both of them had a fairly rocky affair at Three Sisters. In fact, Sean Whittaker getting the worst end of that, just outside of the top 5. ACME Racing, though, with a win and 2 consecutive P4s, are looking very nice in terms of the championship. But Sean Whittaker looking to fire back straight away and gain 5 of those points back in race 2. 2 laps left to run at the line. Sean Whittaker leads and want those points because this MotoTeam championship is actually really close.
Yeah, it is. I mean, MotoTeam, it's always a surprising series, you know. You don't really think about it that often, you know, because it's just, you know, it's all about the team, and we always talk about the team, and a lot of it's trying to figure out who's on the bike half the time because we don't know, and trying to figure out where's where and what class. And then you actually look at the championship table and you realise it's a brilliant championship, and that is a brilliant move by Ben O'Keefe, but he's run a little bit deep down into the Stewart corner. And he's come across and just lost the position there that he so quickly gained back down to 3rd in standard. As I was saying, it's super close out in this series. The championship is always super close, and the racing is always super close as well. Heading then on to what will be the penultimate lap for this pair. And Team ACME Racing still holding on from Ben O'Keefe. O'Keefe, though, has now slid through. He knows an overtake is possible. That's going to be a confidence boost in the mind.
Yeah, I think what he did was actually move over too soon. He, backwards thinking actually, he actually overtook too quickly as such, if you're sort of trying to catch my drift. He then took the race line back, and that opened the door for ACME Racing to launch the move back to the inside as such. So with a lap and a half left to go, Ben O'Keefe needs to be careful. A good run out of that second hairpin, getting squeezed all the way to the grass by that number 8 machine, but the 64 might well be able to slide his way through to the inside of Stewart. But no, we've seen it time and time again so far this weekend. The outside line through Stewart is so much more advantageous because of that sweeping momentum.
It is indeed. ACME Racing have managed to gain a bit more of an advantage there over Ben O'Keefe. Again, this is for 2nd in the standard class, 3rd place overall. Sean Whittaker starts final lap, shoots a pointing finger at the flag marshal Lee Clowes there. Obviously sharing a bit of joke. Sean and Lee getting on very well off of the track. This is also last lap of the race. Sean Whittaker, well, he's just set off and hasn't looked back, and in fact he is looking back there just to try and see where the competition is. He's 4.5 seconds up the road on Phil Mapplebrook, who's not even in his class. The nearest rider in the standard class is the number 8 of Team ACME Racing, and they're 7.5 seconds off. He's just got a good start. Done a Sean Whittaker, disappeared, and just, you know, had a nice Sunday morning ride. Or is it afternoon now? It's actually a nice Sunday afternoon ride.
Only just, it's fine. Lunchtime coming up soon anyway, so it's all good. So we'll finish this race and get a very nice celebratory bit of scram, I'm sure. But the final couple of corners for Sean Whittaker. He closes the gap in the championship with a fantastic ride. It all started with pole position. It all started with a good start, and he completed it, sees the checker flag first. Sean Whittaker takes another victory in the MotoTeam standard and overall classification. What a ride that was, and what a way to round off his morning/afternoon. And we'll see him back, of course, a little bit later on to try and smash another race victory. Let's run you through the finishing order, though. It's Sean Whittaker who takes win in the standard. Phil Mapplebrook takes the win in the open, but P2 overall. ACME Racing and Ben O'Keefe unfortunately unable to complete that move. I think, in fact, actually made a mistake on that final run through, because lost a decent chunk of time, 4.5 seconds to Team ACME Racing. That's the standard podium ahead of Harrison O'Keefe. Ian Jackson P2 in the open ahead of Team Ernie the Badger in the on the 119. Gary O'Keefe behind that completes the open podium ahead of Ox Racing and Madison MARTLEW, the AAA, completing the top 10. Decent race, though, it must be said. Good little battle for P2 in the standard, and of course Sean Whittaker, Phil Mapplebrook, untouchable in their respective classes. Absolutely. Ben O'Keefe, as I said earlier, you know, the O'Keefes are just gaining confidence and pace every single round, and Ben O'Keefe, he's really looking fast this weekend. He's really looking like he can work his way forward, and they've got a lot more races to come as well. That was only race 2 of round number 4. Again, a double round this weekend, 6 races per class.
So he's got 4 more races to continue to build that confidence and continue to move forward. Great win there, though, for Sean Whittaker in standard. Great win for Phil Mapplewhite in the open class. They were back out later on for their 3rd race of the 4th round. Up next, we have the MotoTeam race number 3. And it all got a bit exciting in race number 2, didn't it, in MotoTeam? Of course, it's a double-header, so still plenty more action to come from these guys. But this being round 4, the final race of round 4, race 2 of round 4 was very, very interesting. Lots of ding-dongs out on track. And the one that we were really watching was Team ACME Racing going up against Ben O'Keefe for 2nd place in the standard class. A great race that we had on our hands at that moment. And well, let's see if we're going to get more of the same in this one. As they make their way out on their sighting lap, Sean Whittaker starts on the pole position. Guy Kite starts from P2 with Team ACME Racing starting in 3rd. Phil Mapplewhite is going from P4 with P5, Ben O'Keefe. P6 is Team Ernie the Badger. Team 7, we have P7, should I say, of Harrison O'Keefe. P8, Gary O'Keefe. And rounding out our grid is Madison Martlew. 8 or 9 bike grid heading into this one for race 3 of the MotoTeam 4th round here at Rowrah. A great race that we saw in race number 2. Let's see how we fare in race number 3. Zach Sweeney.
Yeah, I think so. It should be an absolute cracker. Of course, Sean Whittaker, Phil Mapplewhite just pretty much dominated race number 2 in their own aspects. I mean, obviously, Sean Whittaker in the standard, Mapplewhite in the open, but ACME Racing versus Ben O'Keefe, now that was a race to watch. Unfortunately, in the end, Ben O'Keefe, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was a mistake or an issue, dropped off the back of the number 8 machine, but hopefully we can carry that momentum forward into their final race of the first half of 2024 before tomorrow they kickstart things for the second half in round number 5. There you can see the top 3, Whittaker, Guy Kite, Team ACME Racing, 11 laps around Rowrah.
Let's see how we fare in race number 3 of MotoTeam, shall we? The riders all getting ready to go racing. Moments away from the red lights going on and the revs rising. The tension building. A bumper crowd watching along here at Rowrah for the final race of round 4 this weekend in the MotoTeam class. It is lights out. We are underway. Strong start there from Ian Jackson in P2, but it will be Sean Whittaker that holds the lead. They all slot down into the chicane in the same order that they started in. All very, very clean so far as Team ACME Racing holding off from the 27 of Ian Jackson there. Further back we see some of the O'Keefes getting involved with each other, but moving swiftly onwards. Whittaker still leads from Jackson on the number 27. Can Ian Jackson try and find a way through on that number 27 bike in the open class? Again, 2 classes as always here in MotoTeam, standard and open. The overall positions matter, do they not? Even if the guys like racing for position out on track, it is all about where you finish in relative to those within your class. Whittaker and Jackson are in 2 different classes right now. Well, actually, Jackson might have to ride behind because Phil Mapplewhite's got through the Team ACME Racing number 8 bike. And there we go. Ian Jackson and Phil Mapplewhite, they are in the same class. So we're already seeing racing for the lead in the open category.
It's a double open sandwich with some MotoTeam standard bread either side of him. It's Sean Whittaker from Jackson, Mapplewhite and ACME, of course. ACME want to get past Whittaker, Mapplewhite wants to get past Jackson, so hopefully a nice toasty little fight that we've got in store for the next 10 laps of racing action. Sean Whittaker able to lead, extending that margin, but look there as the 27 is under pressure. The 19 tries to go to the outside. Of course, that's Phil Mapplewhite, our race 1 open winner, swoops away around the outside of that second hairpin. Beautifully done, takes the open lead and is now all eyes on the overall.
Nice stuff there from Phil Mapplewhite. He was looking phenomenal in race number 1 and continuing that good form here in race number 2 or race number 3, should I say, race number 2 of today that's happened. Again, it gets confusing. Again, 6 races, 2 different rounds, too much to keep track of. Plus, you've got different categories and all that. Goodness me, my mind is boggled. But anyway, up the front overall, Sean Whittaker leading the way in the standard class as well. Team ACME Racing are 2nd in standard, and they are currently running P4 overall. Ben O'Keefe just behind them is P3. And, well, Ben O'Keefe and Team ACME Racing, they had a big ding-dong in race number 2 earlier on today. Let's see if they can bring more of that, as that's Team ACME Racing going around the outside of Ian Jackson. This is not for position, but unfortunately comes to nothing, but it's a good go there by the number 8 one. Ian Jackson, the number 27, for some reason, not quite possessing the same pace that it had in qualifying, for whatever reason that may be. In the racing, it just seems like it's not quite going his way. But as they continue to push on, regardless, it will be Whittaker that leads the way in the Open. Phil Mapplebook, new fastest lap on the previous tour in the Open class, leading the way. He's pulled a bit of a gap back to Ian Jackson, so Mapplebook looking to dominate the Open class once again. And look at that as well, Mapplebook might actually be going for the overall lead.
He might well be indeed. The fast lap changed hands so quickly, the timing barely had time to react. Sean Whittaker went fastest with a 57.2. Phil Mapplebook straight away across the line, 57.0, going the way of him. Of course, we have to emphasise Sean Whittaker, that number 1, is in the standard. I think he might have a problem as well. A missed gear off the exit of the hairpin. As he got it sorted, I think he has. Nonetheless, the overall lead has changed. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things because they are 2 separate championships. Sean Whittaker, though, whatever happened there, cost him the overall lead. Let's hope it's not a problem that develops over the duration of the race. Otherwise, Team ACME are going to be like, cheers, that's an easy win for us.
Yeah, hopefully not an issue for Sean Whittaker. Hopefully he can continue. I think it was just a misgear, though. We've seen a couple of riders across the classes struggling, especially Adam McRae's hairpin, the first hairpin, the left-hander, just struggling to get the gear. It is a little bit off camber, and you're coming down a hill into it, and then you're going up an even steeper hill coming out of it. It's just a very, very tricky corner. I'm assuming it's just quite easy just to get it wrong and miss a gear or just over-rev the bike or something like that. And that's probably what has happened to Sean Whittaker as well. But Mapplebook leads overall. Whittaker leads the standard class. And, well, quite a gap back for both of them from their nearest challengers. The only real fight that's happening on track right now, well, there isn't one, because the only 2 riders that are next to each other that are in the same class is Ben O'Keefe and the Team ERNIE, the Badger bike, and they're separated by some 15 seconds. So right now, it's more about keeping it on the black stuff and maybe fighting for overall lead. And actually, was that... I think I just saw Ian Jackson trying to do something, or Sean Whittaker, should I say, trying to do something to the bike there. It looked like he was trying to fiddle with the handlebars or the front screen or something. Very, very interesting as Mapplebook continues in the lead. Ox Racing, a new team this weekend in P5, put on a pretty good display in race number 2 earlier. They're currently P2 in the, or P3, should I say, in the Open class, so doing a good job. But again, in a bit of a no man's land at the moment, some 3 seconds behind the bike in front, which is a standard class bike, and some 3 seconds ahead of the bike behind them, which is also a standard class bike.
Yeah, pretty good race in store. 6 laps of it left to go. Phil Mapplebook, of course, leading. An overall battle, not necessarily one for class position, because it goes MotoTeam Open, MotoTeam Standard, Open, Standard, Open, Standard for the entirety of the top 6. So we haven't actually got any intra-class battles, only inter-class battles between Open and Standard for the overall win and the overall podium, in fact, as well. Does that mean they're going to have an air of caution about it and be like, well, I'm not getting any extra points for it. Is it worth the risk, or is it I'm a racing rider and I want fun?
I mean, part of it is fun, I suppose. You know, a lot of the MotoTeam guys do just want to go out there and race. They don't really go out to the track thinking about, oh, I need to be ahead of this person and this person for my category's championship. They just go, nah, I just want to win the race, don't I? You know, finish first overall.
Keep it simple.
And, yeah, keep it simple, and that's absolutely fair enough. You know, do what you want to do out the bike as long as you're having fun, because that's the main reason why we're here. You know, we go racing because it's fun and because we love it. You know, not for any really real reason other than that. And as we see there, some battles further back. That looks like the 119 of Team ERNIE the Badger with Gary O'Keefe behind them. That is not a fight for position. Those are in 2 different classes. And Team Ox Racing are dropping down the order. I wonder if Team Ox Racing have come off, and it sounds like someone's just dived into the pit lane. That's got to be the 65 Team Ox bike, so I think there might be a mechanical problem for them. That's a real shame. Hopefully they can get back out. If not, that leaves 8 bikes left in this race with 5 laps left to go. But yeah, that's not what you want to see. And yeah, it looks like they've got off the bike and are down and out. Real shame there for the new team on the grid, the new kids on the block this weekend in MotoTeam. But as we continue to watch this battle again, these guys, you know, Team ERNIE the Badger and Gary O'Keefe, they're not fighting for position, but they're still going to go each other anyway. And back to the battle for the overall lead. These guys are both going to bring home maximum points because they're in the lead of their respective classes. But just for bragging rights in front of your mates, you'd rather be the one that crosses the finish line first, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Then it feels more like a win, I suppose, because you've bested everyone, even if it's you've still bested everyone in your class, I suppose. They're still fighting for position, they're just not fighting for points, I suppose. 4 laps left to go, 3.5, 3 at the line, of course. Phil Mapplewhite then leads Sean Whittaker. And if you're thinking Team Ox Racing, they're new on the block, you want to get yourself into some bike racing as well, MotoTeam is one of, if not the cheapest entries into motorsport you could probably find in the entirety of the UK. So go on to Facebook Marketplace, eBay, the FAB website, find an old bike, get some of your mates, sign up, and away you go. It is as simple as that. Build up some courage, build your way up on the bike, and maybe fight at the front. It is definitely a worthy paddock to be a part of the communal aspect of it, as Sean Whittaker tries to fight his way into the overall lead. No way through on this occasion, but 2.5 laps left to go, and Sean Whittaker still looking down at his feet. Is there an issue, or is it just him missing a gear going for that head?
I'm not sure what's happening with Sean Whittaker. I do wonder if there's maybe an issue with the bike. Maybe the gear selector's having a problem, or maybe it's just a slippy pedal or something like that, and his foot's just not quite getting in where he wants it to be. But he's still set to take the standard class victory anyway, so it's not a complete disaster. But again, he would like to take the overall victory as well, wouldn't he? Just go back to the, getting some mates together. That's what MotoTeam is about.
That's the most difficult bit.
Yeah,
getting your mates.
Getting your mate. I mean, it is the most difficult bit, but it's also what MotoTeam is entirely about. Of course, it's all about the bike, not who's on it. Which is why sometimes we get names confused because someone's been thrown on a bike and we've got no idea who it is because it still says it's this person's when it's someone else's. But you can very much let's say you get 3 of your mates. That's 3 races each, all on one bike. You're all fighting for the same championship. That's what MotoTeam is all about. It's about being a team and coming together and having some fun and going racing.
Exactly that, and that's what we're all here for. Be passionate about it. No one's here because it's a chore. Trust me. We're here because we want to be. It's tough, long weekends, especially if you're racing. You wouldn't do it if you don't enjoy it. They're out there because they're absolutely fine. This, of course, Ian Jackson, the 27 that we're following. It's at P3 overall, P2 in the open class, behind Phil Mapplewhite, who is about 3 seconds up the road with a lap and a half left to run. Ian Jackson not doing a bad job, it must be said. Of course, dropping back relative to Sean Whittaker off the line, of course, falling back behind Phil Mapplewhite, who just got an absolutely incredible launch. P3 overall, P2 in class. It's all right.
Yeah, it's not bad going at all there. Last lap then for our 2 race leaders. But who's going to get the overall win? Is Sean Whittaker going to give it a go? Because he's suddenly whipping it up and turning the pace up. Can he have a go? Apparently there was almost a coming together between the pair of them in the last corner, so Sean Whittaker clearly wants that overall race victory. Glances back to make sure there is no pressure from behind. Again, both these guys, presuming they make the checkered flag, are set to pick up maximum points. Both of them in the lead for the open class for Mapplewhite and the standard class for Whittaker. Half a lap left to go though. Who is going to bring it home in the overall class, which doesn't exist, but whoever crosses the finish line first does get bragging rights. Right now, Phil Mapplewhite looking to hold on unless Sean Whittaker can launch something brilliant into the final corner. They go. Mapplewhite goes defensive, racing for the fun of it, not for points. It will be Phil Mapplewhite who takes the overall victory. Sean Whittaker just 2 tenths behind him, but both of them taking their respective class wins and picking up maximum points as well. Ian Jackson finishes second in open, with Gary O'Keefe set to finish third in the standard class. Team ACME Racing finish in second, with Ben O'Keefe finishing in P3 in that one. A very enjoyable race between the front 2. Again, they know it's not for points or indeed for position, but they're going to go for it anyway.
Of course they are, exactly. And again, they're involved in racing, right? It's just an instinct as a racing rider to look in front of you, see a position, see an overtake, and go for it and go for fun. That's why we see some people racing in practice or warm-up sessions, because it's just that adrenaline rush that they go for. And it's nice to see Phil Mapplewhite, Sean Whittaker, of course, both of them winning their respective classes. This time, though, the other way around. And it's an interesting battle developing, even if it's not a battle for championship points or anything like that. And let's see what they can do over the duration, of course, of tomorrow, because we've still got the entirety of round 5 to go here at Rowrah.
We do indeed. What a great race we have just seen there in the MotoTeam. As Zach said, plenty more action to come across tomorrow and today. Race number 1 in the MotoTeam, round 5 here at Rowrah. And well, you might be seeing there someone that you wouldn't expect to be seeing in MotoTeam. on the Ox Racing, number 65, our very own Super Sullivan Mounsey, who we had in the commentary box a lot yesterday, deciding to head out into MotoTeam. I think this is the first time he's taken part in MotoTeam, so it should be quite interesting, but I've decided to set him a challenge because, you know, with all due respect to the other riders, you've got Sullivan Mounsey there who is racing on an international stage. Essentially, if he doesn't win, I've decided that he should be sacked from Red Bull Rookies and someone else should get his seat, because just for fun, why not? But he's taking part, which is interesting to see as the riders, a bit of confusion, but get going on their sighting lap ultimately. But as that may be a problem for Sullivan Mounsey? Maybe the thing's going slowly and smoking a lot is the Ox Racing bike. I think Sullivan Mounsey, I might be losing his Red Bull Rookie seat. Oh dear, oh dear. Sullivan Mounsey came here this weekend with the intention of racing in the Extreme 200s. Then the bike was broken before they even got going. And now potentially issues on that Ox Racing machine, because that thing, Zach Sweeney, is crawling right now.
Yeah, I don't think that's a skill issue from Sullivan Mounsey. I think, unfortunately, that bike is not ideal. I think he is going to have to pull off, but you'll agree he's contractually obliged now to hand it over, surely. I mean, Ross McIntyre is now going to be taken to Red Bull Rookies, ladies and gentlemen.
I think
watch out. Watch out, he's about.
I mean, you've got Mounsey who's competing at the front in the Red Bull Rookies, and you've got me who wouldn't even make it round turn 1.
You'd probably fall off the bike.
Yeah, I'd probably fall off at turn 1. But anyway, Mounsey, yeah, he's much better than me, so I'll let him have the Red Bull ride. But yeah, big problems there.
Nice of you.
For that number 65 Ox Racing bike. Smoke billowing out of the exhaust. Let's run through what the grid is supposed to be. It looks a little bit smaller than it has been. Of course, we've had some chopping and changing with the MotoTeam because not everyone's been coming out to every race. Maybe Ox Racing not even taking part with Mounsey at the handlebars. Sean Whittaker starts on pole with Guy Kite P2. Team ACME Racing in P3. Phil Mappleweg starts in P4 with Ben O'Keefe and Team Ernie the Badger supposedly starting on the second row, but not seen much of Team Ernie the Badger. No, they have been taking part, to be fair, but they've been a relatively quiet weekend for Team Ernie the Badger, shall we say. Harrison O'Keefe starts in 7th with Gary O'Keefe in P8 and Madison MARTLEW in P9. That was the grid that we were supposed to have, but it's been chopping and changing. Right now, Sullivan Mounsey is sat at the back end of the circuit. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what he's doing. He's not trying to do a Will Howarth and do a last to first challenge in MotoTeam that Will Howarth so often did across the years, because the 96 bike he had was just that good that he could just do that. And there was one time I think he did actually start 2 corners behind everyone else and still went to the lead. I don't think Mounsey's doing that, because he's now pushing the bike across the grass and he's now off, and I think Sullivan Mounsey might be down and out before we even get going.
I'm waiting for him to say psych, get back on and just go as if it was fine and just if it was just a lovely prank, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he is down and out. That is a shame. I was looking forward to seeing him sort of maybe trying to send his way through. Yeah, that is unfortunate. The other riders, of course, are waiting on the grid to be told to get going, but we do have to probably wait for Mounsey to either get back to the pit lane or get him off the track or whatever. But that is unfortunate because, again, we were excited to see him. Maybe he's going to be back out later or whatever the issue is with the bike. But there you can see our other riders patiently waiting to get going.
Probably thinking, what's the point of it all? Sullivan Mounsey seemingly destined not to go racing this weekend. The MotoTeam is about to get underway for round number 5. The riders on the grid checking over, making sure Mounsey's in the pits and out of the way. Of course, can't go racing until conditions are safe. The number 1 of Sean Whittaker sat on the pole position, getting ready to go. It is now all eyes to the lights. It is lights out. We are underway. Big pickup at the front for Ian Jackson on the number 27. Sean Whittaker leads the way with Team ACME Racing sliding through into P2. Whittaker and the number 8 of Team ACME, they are in the same class. They are competing for position, not just for overall position. Making their way, Adam McRae's hairpin for the first time. No Sullivan Mounsey in sight, unfortunately. I think the Team Ox bike is down and out, but Sean Whittaker holding on to that lead from Ian Jackson on the 27 behind them as well. That's the 64th, Ben O'Keefe. all three of those guys in the standard class. We've got a 1, 2, 3 in the standard. What's happening to Ian Jackson? He got a very disappointing start, leading the way in the open class still, but dropping right back. We could have a 3-bike standard class fight here on our hands, actually.
I think so. I think we are going to have, because Sean Whittaker, of course, did take a victory yesterday. They're side by side as well, a little bit further back. I think that is just Ian Jackson tumbling his way back through the field, unfortunately, for Sean Whittaker from ACME Racing from Ben O'Keefe. Let's bring it on, because they are the top 3 in the championship, funnily enough, for the standards coming into this round. A lot of points on offer, a lot of prestige on offer. They want to be kick-starting the second half of 2024 on the front foot. Team ACME Racing, of course, took their first victory of the season back at Ella Park. They took their first victory of 3 sisters for race 1, consistently either on the podium or inside the top 5. Sean Whittaker has suffered a couple of DNFs and a couple of poor races, but he has been firing back on all cylinders for round number 4 and 5 here for the MotoTeam standard class, leading the overall at the moment, leading Team ACME Racing, leading Ben O'Keefe, who has got some decent pace on that 64.
And as you say that, Ben O'Keefe did set the fastest lap on the opening lap. Again, we'll wait to see what the true pace is like. We know Ben O'Keefe is fast. Again, been slowly working his way up the grid over the last year or so. And there's been flashes of absolute brilliance across then. You know, we've seen him fighting for race wins, as there goes Team ACME Racing to the lead up the inside of Sean Whittaker. Lovely move by the number 8. And here comes Ben O'Keefe potentially as well to the inside. No, number 1 shams the door shut, cuts him off. As I was saying though, Ben O'Keefe, we've seen moments of brilliance as he progresses as a rider. Now he is fighting for wins all the while long. Oh, maybe an issue there for Sean Whittaker. He pulled back on the throttle. It just seemed it didn't seem to go. So very, very strange there. Of course, if you're a FAB-Racing rider watching along, or even a No Limits Track Day rider, you can come along for the MotoTeam, guys. Your bikes are very much accepted, of course, and we'd love to have you here. We do normally get a lot of the FAB-Racing guys coming to Rowrah, but none turning up this year for whatever reason, which is a real shame. I think one of the FAB-Racing riders, if I remember correctly, was actually a Grand Prix rider back in the day, raced against Valentino Rossi before. I actually beat him once, I think. I remember going down that rabbit hole before. But yeah, shame there's no FAB-Racing riders here today, so if you are a FAB-Racing rider, please come along. You're more than welcome in MotoTeam. It is now Team ACME Racing on the number 8 that leads from Sean Whittaker, Ben O'Keefe and P3. It's a standard 1, 2, 3, 4. Team Ernie the Badger up to P4. The 2 open bikes, Ian Jackson and Gary O'Keefe, P5 and 6. As it stands overall, Madison MARTLEW standard P7, P5 in the standard class, and Harrison O'Keefe unfortunately DNFing already. I don't think he may have started the race. Of course, Sullivan Mounsey on the Ox Racing bike, not even making it to the starting grid. It's
unfortunate, and hopefully, again, like I say, we'll see him out later, because I do want to sort of see a little bit of Sullivan Mounsey action. Of course, the reigning Extreme 200 champion of 2023, absolutely running away with it over the duration of last year, and coming into this, he's a decent commentator as well, funnily enough, and I wanted to see what he could do out on circuit, but apparently not. The stars were not destined to see him on track, but we do still get a brilliant battle nonetheless. 6 laps left to go at the line. The number 8 followed very closely by Sean Whittaker. Ben O'Keefe dropping off ever so slightly, and I fear that maybe that 3-horse battle that we were seeing is now slowly creeping itself into a duo out in front.
Potentially. We did see Ben O'Keefe just getting cut off a little bit by Sean Whittaker with a rather brutal block pass, it must be said. Of course, all is fair in love and war, and especially in racing. As long as it's not illegal, it's fair game in my eyes. You may disagree with me, Zach, but I'm a big fan of hard racing. You know, it's as long as you're not going over the line, anything goes. And that was a bit of what Sean Whittaker was doing, really shoved Ben O'Keefe out, and O'Keefe was falling back. But also, looking at the lap time, Sean Whittaker, fastest lap of the race last time, of 57.039, looking very, very pacey. Of course, not as fast as Will Houth's blistering lap time back in 2018, that was in the 53s. That was with the old regulations, though, when the MotoTeam bikes were a little bit faster, and you could get pit bike style machines in MotoTeam as well. And Will Houth, I'm sure you are watching along. If you are watching, please come back. We miss you. It'd be great to see you back on the MotoTeam grid, back in the paddock as well. Of course, Will Houth has been around for years and years, but has maybe lessened his commitment. Oh, that's wide from the number 8. That's going to allow Sean Whittaker into the lead. Shake of the head for the rider as they head through up into Airedales. Knew he made the mistake, knew Sean Whittaker was going through, and the number 1 now back to Pete.
Nicely done from Sean Whittaker. Of course, just didn't have to do anything, basically just rode the bike on the racing line, and that was that. Team ACME Racing were the ones to, blink first and make that mistake. 4 laps to go at the line. They've got a couple of corners to negotiate until they get to that point. But for Team ACME, they've put themselves on the back foot, and now they've got to do all of the hard work of applying pressure to Sean Whittaker, and they've got less than half the race to go and do it. So Sean Whittaker trying to once again extend the margin that he's been able to get. Took the championship lead, of course, yesterday, coming into today in the Moto Team standard class. There was only 8 points separating them anyway, not much at all. Sean Whittaker able to come in flying for Rowrah, and at the moment is looking to maybe extend that championship lead. Looking at the 119 team earning the Badger, P4 overall, P4 in the standard class as well. Having a nice little quiet race, just suspended in no man's land, really.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with just, going around and enjoying yourself. A relatively small grid here in MotoTeam, unfortunately. We were supposed to have 9 bikes. Then there was 8 with Super Sully Mounsey, unfortunately not making it to the grid. Then we lost Harrison O'Keefe. But, so a little bit of no man's land out there, but still pushing, still having fun out there. I'm absolutely sure, of course, this is the cheapest form of motorsport available in the UK. You buy as cheap of a bike as you can find off Tinternet, as they would say in Yorkshire, and then you stick a race fairing on it and you go racing. As simple as that. Again, if you're watching along at home, band together a couple of mates, throw a few quid in, and then, again, because it's MotoTeam, it's all about the bike. You can share the bike across the 3 races across the season and have a blast. That's what MotoTeam is all about, and it is a lot of fun to watch as well. There we do see Ian Jackson. He's currently only 9/10 of a second ahead of Gary O'Keefe, the only other competitor in the open class in this race. So maybe there is a fight going on in the open class. Ian Jackson, a disappointing start. I'm wondering if there's maybe a few issues with the bike, because it just didn't launch at all away from the line. And Ian just dropping down the order on the opening few laps. He's a rider that's consistently up the front, consistently fast, although maybe not quite up to his brilliant best here at Rowrah. It's definitely been not his finest showing, unfortunately, as that was them just lapping Madison MARTLEW there. So just Madison MARTLEW getting out of position, which was very nice of them. The 888 did not need to let them through, but they did so in due course. Unless that was the 119 of Team ERNIE the Badger, but I'm not sure. It was the 119 of Team ERNIE the Badger. So there you go. That's not a move for position. They're in 2 different classes, but Team ERNIE the Badger dropping down into what will now be P6 overall.
Yeah, unfortunate there, of course, for Team ERNIE the Badger. Of course, not losing any class positions as such, just dropping back behind the 2 open riders. So they're still going to be scoring the same amount of points, which is 13 for 4th place in class, but unfortunately losing out a little bit of prestige, I suppose, as such. They're going to be losing a little bit of maybe pride, dropping back a couple of positions, but Ian Jackson, Gary O'Keefe fighting for what is now 4th place overall. More importantly, the open win. 25 points on offer for a win, 20 on offer for P2. Last lap flag shown to Sean Whittaker. Look at the gap now. Back to Team ACME Racing, 1.7 seconds. Sean Whittaker, 1 more tour of Rowrah to go, and he's going to take another victory this season.
Lap times very similar, must be said, so I think there was just a mistake somewhere from the number 8 as they go on their last lap, because last lap, Team ACME Racing were actually faster. There was a bit of traffic for both of them, but Team ACME Racing 0.2 of a second quicker on the previous lap. Sean Whittaker, his best lap was 0.5 faster than Team ACME Racing's, but 1.7 seconds, that's got to be a mistake surely somewhere. It's not been an easy ride for Sean Whittaker though. He did have to fight his way back through. Both Ben O'Keefe and Team ACME Racing taking the fight to him early in this race, but ultimately it was the number 1 who was able to get back to P1 once again in what was a straight fight in the standard class. Sean Whittaker will round paddock bend for the very final time in race number 1 and take a well-earned victory in the standard class and the overall win. Great stuff from Sean Whittaker. Team ACME Racing in P2 in standard and overall. We wait for the arrival of Ben O'Keefe to step up onto the podium. But Sean Whittaker takes yet another victory this year in MotoTeam standard. Lovely riding from him. When the going got tough, he stayed with it. He pushed on through. He got back to the lead and just stayed there. And when the others made mistakes, the others had issues, he kept on ploughing forward. As here we see further back in the pack, Ben O'Keefe still hasn't crossed the line yet. Is that Ben O'Keefe? No, I believe that's Gary and Ian Jackson fighting. Indeed, it is. Ben O'Keefe has now finished third in the standard class. This is for the race win in the open class. Can Gary O'Keefe get it at the line? Looks like it's going to be close, but Ian Jackson will just pip him at the line. Gary O'Keefe will have to settle for second, which is also somehow last in the open class, but it's still a podium technically, so it could be a lot worse. As Team Ernie the Badger pick up fourth and Madison MARTLEW pick up fifth in the standard class. Unfortunately, we did lose Harrison O'Keefe. So Sean Whittaker, Team ACME Racing, Ben O'Keefe, your overall podium and your top three in standard. Ian Jackson and Gary O'Keefe were fourth and fifth. They were P1 and 2 in open, and P6 and 7. P4 and 5 in the standard class was Team Ernie the Badger and Madison MARTLEW. Unfortunately, we lost Harrison O'Keefe, and Sullivan Mounsey, the Ox Racing bike, a DNS, did not start.
That's an F in it.
That is an F.
There's a big F in chat for good old Sullivan Mounsey. Hopefully we'll see him later on. But MotoTeam are all done for race 1. We'll see them later on for race 2 and race 3. Don't forget, we've got 3 races of each class over the duration of today. MotoTeam back later on.
Race number 2 then for MotoTeam awaits us. And well, race number 1 was exciting to say the least. We had a great 3-way battle in the standard class. All the way through the race. In the end, Sean Whittaker was able to finish on the top, and right now is the only one who's head out onto track for some reason. But Sean Whittaker gets going and gets a move on. He will start from the pole position. Guy Kite qualified in P2, but he's not been seen all weekend so far. The Team ACME Racing starting P3. Phil Mapplebeck qualifying P4. Ben O'Keefe in P5. Team Ernie the Badger P6. Harrison O'Keefe P7. Gary O'Keefe P8. And Madison MARTLEW in P9. We also haven't seen much of this weekend, but I think I actually did see them out there in the dummy grid. So maybe Madison MARTLEW taking an appearance. No Ox Racing, no Sullivan Mounsey to be found in this one, after failing to get started in race number 1 earlier today. Hello and welcome. If you are just joining us to Monday Motorsport action here, the back end of the double round here at the FAB-Racing Minibike British Championships, rounds 4 and 5, all in one weekend at the Cumbria Kart Racing Club, Rowrah, better known as nestled in the northernmost part of the Lake District. You've joined myself, Ross McIntyre, Zach Sweeney alongside me, bringing you all of the action. And it's time to go racing on a Monday for the MotoTeam, race number 2.
Yeah, lining themselves up on the grid, the usual 1 sighting lap and then straight to the grid, trying to save time. The good thing about moving ahead of schedule is that obviously people get to go home quicker, but the bad thing is that if you have issues like Sullivan Mounsey did in race 1, you've actually got less time to fix the bike and figure out what that issue is. And it sort of does mean for a bit of crunch time, which is a shame that we're not going to see the Ox Racing bike take to the grid. But look at that fantastic race. Remember that fantastic race we had for race 1 between Sean Whittaker and Team ACME? All of the likes. It is going to be ice to lights for race number 2 of round 5 of MotoTeam. Who's going to get the better jump this time? A little bit of a jump start, I think, from the 64 of Ben O'Keefe, but it doesn't matter at all. The 65 finds his way through. There goes Ian Jackson on that 27 machine. Team ACME have the answer to it. Sean Whittaker is then able to lead quite nicely, it must be said, in towards the first hairpin for the first time. Team ACME right behind Sean Whittaker. It did seem like he creeped forward a little bit, did that 64?
Potentially. We're waiting to see what the stewards have to say. Race controller right next door to us here in the commentary box, so they can literally just poke their head around the door and just tell us if anything's going wrong and anyone's got a penalty. The number 1 leads, the number 8 leads, the number 27 though. And so I think it might be Sullivan Mounsey on the number 27, because he's got the correct leathers on, so that could be him there. Maybe, I don't know, actually it might not be. It might be Austin Johnson potentially, I don't know. Sometimes the riders chop and change, but it will be Team Ian Jackson for the 27. Sean Whittaker leads from Team ACME Racing, and the 27 was in third place, being overtaken by Ben O'Keefe, I believe it was, and indeed it is, as they come to end the first lap. Ben O'Keefe up, or it's Harrison O'Keefe actually on the 65 who's got through. Ben O'Keefe has fallen back to 5th place overall. He's currently 4th in the standard class. Yeah,
of course, we have got 2 races if you are just joining us for the first time. This is MotoTeam, one of the cheapest forms of motorsport in the entirety of the UK. Get yourself a bike that fits the regulations, Facebook Marketplace, eBay, the FAB-Racing website. Get yourself a race fender, get some mates, that's the difficult bit, and then get yourself on track and racing for relatively cheap prices in terms of UK motorsport, and of course you can have a lot of fun. We've got the standard and the open class, and it's all about the bike. Irrelevant who's on it, of course it helps if they ride it quickly, but it's the bike that scores the points. and you can chop and change session by session. There is the move, the 27. It seems the 65 might have some issues. Going wide is Harrison O'Keefe, allowing...
Big problem.
What is that? Is that a wire snap?
Oh, yeah, is that the rear brake, maybe?
I think so.
Or something like that? Yeah, that's...
Cables.
Yeah, rear brake cable, coming down. That's a real shame there. That's a real shame for Harrison O'Keefe. Should be able to continue if he crawls along, but I don't think he'll be wanting to. Rear brake looks like that has come to an end. A real shame there for Harrison O'Keefe, who was running so well. Up at the front though, it's Sean Whittaker and Team ACME Racing still going side by side. If you saw in race number 1, they're 1 and 2 overall, and in the standard class, the Ian Jackson number 27 bike up to P3 overall. That's leading the open class. Ben O'Keefe is currently 3rd in the standard class in P4 overall. Second place in the open class is Gary O'Keefe, the number 63. He's down at P6 overall at the moment. But this battle out on track looking like it's going to get hotting up, because the Team ACME bike is pushing very hard. Last lap, the 10th quicker, fastest lap of the race at 57.698, and all over the back of Sean Whittaker. We did see in race number 2, or race number 1 earlier, should I say, that the Sean Whittaker, he's not invincible. He was overtaken a few times, had to fight his way back through, and really had to push towards the end of the race. Ultimately, the others who were fighting them did fade away a little bit, and he started to really push on and set fastest lap after fastest lap, so the gap on paper ended up being pretty sizable. But in the race, he was overtaken a few times. He was made to fight. It's not like he's just going to sit there. The chances are the number 8 bike will be giving it a good go. Yeah, exactly. Team ACME, of course, that last time by was faster of the 2 bikes. Not by much, granted, less than a 10th of a second between the pair of them, but it is a statement, and it is saying to Sean Whittaker that I am not going absolutely anywhere. You are going to be having to look over your shoulder maybe in the near future. And of course, it was a fantastic battle that unfortunately Team ACME Racing, having that issue just a little bit wide through the first hairpin, allowed Whittaker back through. And then, of course, allowed Sean Whittaker to take the win. So Team ACME Racing need to avoid a similar mistake. There we do see Madison MARTLEW out on track. Good to see Madison here. They did qualify. The 888 qualified P9 at the back of the grid, but haven't actually seen them out on track this weekend. So not sure what happened, but the 888 has made it out onto track for race number 2 in round number 5, the 5th race for the Moto team guys this weekend. So great to see Madison out on track, or the Madison bike, should I say anyway, but it is Madison behind the handlebars, I can tell. So great to see the 888 out there and showing face, and it's a shame for whatever reasons it may be that they were not able to compete in the other races. Oh, that's the number 8 having a look to the inside of St. John's. That was aggressive, that was brave, and that might have cost them a few tenths of a second. That's not a place you have a look up the inside there. Should have waited to try and have a go at Sonny Ben, the left-hander that immediately follows it. Much easier to send a dive up the inside, because the rider in front isn't thinking about defending, they're thinking about getting the bike over to the right-hand side of the circuit to open up the corner. It leaves them so exposed on the inside. Unfortunately, the number 8 bike went too early, went a corner too early, and it's compromised them. Still stuck behind Sean Whittaker on the number 1. Yeah, but it definitely shows Sean that, we're here, we're racy, we want to battle, and again, can catch him off guard. We know the appeal of the Sunny Bend is that it really does surprise the opponent. Like you say, they're more worried about taking the racing line, less concerned about having that inside open, and it catches you by surprise. Similarly, into St. John's, it was worth the go because it's unorthodox. We always talk about familiarity and learning when to sort of expect moves to be made. You don't ever expect it into St. John's. It was worth a go. It didn't work. Lesson learned. They're still in contention. Still got 5 laps left to go and chase for the win. And of course, these two direct championship rivals. It was ACME that led coming into Rowrah. It will be Sean Whittaker, as things stand, that leads coming out of it for the second half of the season. But Team ACME want to, at the very least, limit the damage and have the best chance going forward for that championship. Do you know who's just started banging in laps 1.5 seconds quicker than anyone else and is suddenly on the back of the 2 leaders? It's the 27. Where's that come from? These guys will not be fighting for position. The 27 is in the open class. The number 1 and the number 8, they're in the standard class. But the 27, which I think has Austin Johnson on it, suddenly the pace has arrived, and up the inside, there he goes. That was simple, that was easy. Up through goes the 27. Oh no, it's Dan Goodman on the bike. It's Dan Goodman at the on the 27. So Dan Goodman is in this race. I saw in his leathers the Goodman name, so that'll definitely be him. So Dan Goodman's on the 27. Got a slow start. Dan Goodman on Ian Jackson's bike, trying to go for the overall lead. I was wondering why the pace was so strong. That would explain why. It's a British Talent Cup rider on there. So Dan Goodman moves up into second overall. He's essentially got the open win in the bag, unless Gary O'Keefe's able to go 10 seconds quicker than anyone else over the remaining 3 laps. And even then, Gary O'Keefe's still going to finish second in that class anyway. New overall race leader, Dan Goodman on Ian Jackson's number 27 again. That doesn't matter for points-wise because he's in the open class. Whittaker and the number 8 bike, they're in the standard. So this is more just for pride and glory. But there you go, overall leader change. Dan Goodman's figured out how to ride the 27. And turns out, when you stick an R&G British Talent Cup rider on a bike, they're actually quite good.
Yeah. It's funny that, isn't it, really? You wouldn't expect it, but apparently he's all right, is Dan Goodman, and is at the moment in the race lead. And overall, of course, and in the open, so we'll be scoring some good points for that 27 bike, which, of course, it's not a separate championship. It's not the rider's name that gets entered. It is the team name that gets entered, and obviously some riders, if they know they're going to be on the bike, will just obviously have their name. So technically it's Team Ian Jackson. It's more common that Ian Jackson will ride the bike, but sometimes, as we say, you can swap and chop and change whatever you want. As long as the number's on the bike and it correlates to the championship, it's fine. 2 laps left to go and still a fight for the standard lead. Points are at stake for this one.
Absolutely. Again, as part of the joys of MotoTeam, sometimes you've got no idea who's on the bike. Cast you back a few years ago as Jamie King used to have part ownership of a team called Pinky in the Brain, and before that, when it was just under the name of the entry, it was obviously just Jamie King's bike. He used to do a giveaway on his Pit Bike Sonic YouTube channel where you could win yourself a round, basically, or win yourself a race, or 3 people could win a race at each round to have a go on his MotoTeam bike as Dan Goodman starts the last lap. And honestly, it was a nightmare trying to figure out who was on it each time because it was chop and change for Jamie King. But he also took 2 MotoTeam titles along the way, so, not bad going for him. Or 1 MotoTeam title, should I say. So not bad going for him overall. Dan Goodman then starts the last lap. No competition for him, only 2 open bikes in this race, so as long as he stayed on 2 wheels, Team Ian Jackson machine with Dan Goodman on it was going to be on the podium anyway, but Gary O'Keefe on the number 63, the only other open rider, quite some way back. So that 27 machine with Dan Goodman behind the handlebars, set to take home a very easy open class victory. A slow start, but once he got used to the bike and once he figured out how it all worked, he shot into the overall lead and hasn't looked back. Around the final bend comes the number 27. Dan Goodman takes the win for Team Ian Jackson on the 27 in the open class, also takes the overall win. Sean Whittaker just about holds on from the number 8 to take the standard class victory. Team ACME Racing will take home the standard class P2. Ben O'Keefe set to bring it home P3 on the standard class. But yeah, turns out stick a British Talent Cup rider on a bike is quite good. I think that might be it's Dan Goodman's first race win in a while here at FAB-Racing, we'll say that much. But as I was saying, take someone who's in the British Talent Cup, stick him on a bike, and it turns out they can actually ride pretty fast. Who'd have thought of that one? Of course, pointing to the team as well. Great to see Dan Goodman showing some support, of course, like many other riders here at FAB-Racing. Dan's off competing in other championships, so if you're a British Talent Cup rider watching at home, or you're a Free Tech rider or something like that, no limits maybe, come have a go. It's good fun. Would recommend. That's it for race 2 of the Moto team. They'll be back later on this afternoon for their race number 3. It is the Ian Jackson bike that takes the victory. Sean Whittaker in P2, the winner of the standard class. Team ACME Racing P2 in standard. Ben O'Keefe P3 in standard. Ernie the Badger P4 in standard. Gary O'Keefe second in open. Madison MARTLEW and then Harrison O'Keefe rounding out a fortunate DNF after a brake issue early doors in the race.
Next up then, the final race for Moto Team this weekend for what has been a very attritional, very stamina-reliant doubleheader here at Rowrah. Of course, this is the championship where it's all about the bike. The rider is pretty much irrelevant when it comes to the championship. It's all about the number on the front, and those are where the points are scored. We've seen fantastic racing all weekend long from them. Of course, Team ACME Racing versus Sean Whittaker have been battling all throughout and very, very close in their championship battle. They're heading out on their formation lap now. Let's run through the field as they rack up. Sean Whittaker, Guy Kitewood meant to be alongside, but I don't think the 666 will be taking to the grid. Team ACME Racing complete the front row ahead of Phil Mapplebeck, who again I don't think is here today. Ben O'Keefe from 5th place, Team ERNIE the Badger in 6th. Harrison O'Keefe from Gary O'Keefe, Madison MARTLEW, who I think recently has been able to take to the track on that 888 machine. Race number 3 then for MotoTeam. Moments away for what has been a very intense weekend at Rowrah. And MotoTeam, of course, it's the cheapest form of UK entry motorsport. Get a second-hand bike off Facebook Marketplace, groups on Facebook, eBay, whatever you can really find a bike on, usually fairly reasonably priced. Get a couple of your mates together. For fairly decent prices, you can travel around the country racing, of course, and you can share the bike as well, because you're not dedicated to just one rider. You can swap every race. You can get 3 mates together and you can have a race each. One of you does quali, whatever, and it should be very, very fantastic. And also there are some sort of arrive and drive-esque ways to get yourself onto the grid if you want to rent a bike from a team, or sort of just send an email to one of the team owners and say, hang on, yeah, can I have a go? I'll give you some money. Maybe that's one of the ways in as well. If you're thinking about it but don't want to commit, definitely get yourself into the FAB-Racing paddock. They're very welcoming and the very communal aspect about the paddock. It's such a nice atmosphere to have, and always got that friendship about it. But when the visor comes down, there are no friends, only rivals. Sean Whittaker assumes that pole position ahead of the 27 machine. Of course, the team Ian Jackson, eyes to the lights. The number 1 of Sean Whittaker looking to extend his margin in the championship. Let's Go Racing, the 27 of Team Ian Jackson, gets the launch ahead of Sean Whittaker. Team ACME Racing as well, trying to contest into the first chicane, but no way through. A nice start then, it must be said. Team Ian Jackson from MotoTeam opening through into the overall race lead. Sean Whittaker just able to hang on to the standard lead. Don't forget there's 2 classes. Team ACME, though, they've been all over Sean Whittaker all weekend long. Maybe this time is the time to topple them.
Great start there from Ian Jackson away at the lights. And Sean Whittaker and Team ACME find their way through. Of course, Ian Jackson in the open class. The 2 bikes behind him, they are in the standard class, so they are not fighting for position, apart from the overall victory, of course. Last race, Ian Jackson's bike being ridden by none other than Sullivan Mounsey, even though we were convinced it was Dan Goodman. Yeah, because he had Dan Goodman's leather on. But we were told on ours it definitely wasn't Sullivan Mounsey. And, well, we thought it might have been Casey Gorman as well, because it had Casey's helmet on, because Sullivan was a hybrid.
He had someone else's boots on as well.
He had Blake Wilson's boots on, Casey Gorman's helmet, Dan Goodman's leathers. Thought it might have been Casey, thought it might have been Sullivan. We were told it's definitely not, but it was Sullivan. But Ian Jackson is back on the bike now and leading overall, leading the open class. Only 2 bikes out there in the open class, Ian Jackson and Gary O'Keefe. Gary currently 6th and backing up the pack out of our 6 riders. Ian Jackson leading away. A little bit wide there, though. Sean Whittaker and Team ACME Racing. Sean Whittaker, of course, I'm sure would love to get past Ian Jackson if he gets the opportunity to put a bike between himself and that number 8, because they are fighting for the standard class win. Sean Whittaker, though, does he have the pace to get through that 27?
Yeah, that is going to be the question. Of course, there's no points on offer for it. It's open versus standard. They are 2 separate races just on the same track. You can fight for the overall win, by all means, but you do carry a bit of a risk with that, because Team ACME Racing is right behind them. Right, you do not want to have another bike that's right there if you're going to start engaging in a battle, particularly when it's your main championship rival. But the good thing is that if Sean Whittaker finds a way through on the 27, it puts a bike in between himself, sort of as a wall back to Team ACME Racing. So there are pros and there are cons. It's that risk versus reward. How much risk does Sean Whittaker want to take? How much reward does he think he can get if he invests?
Well, I think there might have been a mistake on the previous lap for Team ACME Racing, dropping back a little bit. Sean Whittaker also setting the fastest lap of the race at 57.944. That's the first time that anyone's been in the 57s in this race, so Whittaker clearly the man with the pace. Ian Jackson, though, 58.043, so the lap time's very, very close there. Making their way through Stewart's corner now. And look at Ian Jackson. He is riding superbly in this one. Maybe he's seen what Sullivan Mounsey could do on his bike in race number 2 and decided to push it a bit harder. In race number 1 and the round 4 races on Sunday and Saturday, Ian Jackson, he was there, he was doing a good job and still picking up, solid positions in the open class, because we don't have a lot of open riders here this weekend, but he wasn't out at the front in the overall race. Sullivan Mounsey got on, having never ridden the bike before, went out, gave it a few laps to get used to it, and then went out and just, disappeared off up the road, because, it turns out Red Bull Rookies riders are actually quite good. as Ian Jackson runs a bit wide. Maybe that's a bit of inspiration for Ian Jackson. He's seen that his bike can go out and win overall races, and now he's riding the absolute skin off of it. So Ian Jackson doing a great job at the moment and keeping Sean Whittaker behind as well. But Whittaker, I don't think he's too concerned about overtaking Jackson now. Oh, he's run very wide. Was that a problem, or is Sean Whittaker looking for a race? He might have let him through.
Maybe. It didn't look like he made a mistake. It looked as if it was intentional, and he's just gone back to full speed. I think he wants
I think he wants a bit of a race. Obviously, Ian Jackson was in front. He couldn't find a way through Ian Jackson at that time. And, well, Team ACME Racing is the next standard biking class, I think, because he looked back and then slowed. Yeah. I think Sean Whittaker fancies a race, not just for the overall win, for the class win and where the points actually matter. He wants to go out with a bang and maybe give Team ACME, you know, get some proper racing done. You know, a lot of respect to Sean Whittaker for that. Let's see how this race that he's just formed for himself can go.
Be embarrassing if he doesn't beat them, though, wouldn't it? That would be something special. But nonetheless, it gives us something to watch, which is great. 6 laps left to go. Sean Whittaker closing in on their championship rival, that is Team ACME Racing, and obviously both of them as a pair closing in on Ian Jackson. But that's not their concern. Immediately, Sean Whittaker then looking to the inside of Stuart Benn. He's not going to commit to the inside, and the outside works, going the way of the number 8 machine, which is obviously fantastic for them. But Sean Whittaker knocking on the door of that number 8, wanting the standard lead back. At the moment, there's no opportunity for it.
No, not quite yet, but it's going to be 5 laps left to go soon, so still a lot of time left in this race. Well, I say a lot of time, but still plenty of time to try and make a move. As Sean Whittaker looks left, looks right, can't find his way through Team ACME Racing at the moment. Another fastest lap there for Whittaker, 57.660. ACME responding to the pressure though. The number 8 bike last time, their first lap, or their second lap, should I say, that's in the 57s. That's 2 laps in a row now. One was a 57.8, last lap a 57.9. So now the pressure's behind, responding, upping the pace a little bit. And both of them now running faster than Ian Jackson in front. They could be starting to run into the back of Ian Jackson, and then maybe that would upset their battle for the win a little bit, wouldn't it? But I'm sure that Sean Whittaker wouldn't have let the number 8 by, you know, knowing that he might, you know, not get back through. I know that, I think he was willing to make that sacrifice. I think he knew, you know, if I let him through, I might not get back past, and he was clearly happy to make that decision. I think maybe he enjoys being the hunter instead of the hunted, and as well, maybe he just wants to have a bit of a proper race, going to the inside. The number 8 squeezes the number 1 bike. Team ACME stay in front in P2 overall and leading the standard class.
4 laps left. Ian Jackson, of course, leading the open and the overall. Fastest lap going the way of Team ACME Racing. Very closely matched by Sean Whittaker. A 57.414 to a 57.451 respectively to ACME and Whittaker. Fantastic, though, it must be said. Sean Whittaker, though, he's had a couple of looks, but not really committed. Do you think that he doesn't want to be that guy that is in front, lets you through and then crashes into you? Do you reckon he's being a little bit cautious?
Maybe a little bit. Maybe just a little bit, but he's still pushing nonetheless. There we see some action further back in the pack. Looks like Madison MARTLEW's headed out onto track, but can't see them on our timing screen, so maybe a transponder issue there for Madison MARTLEW, currently following round Gary O'Keefe. Madison is in the standard class. That will put them P5 in the standard class, P7 in the overall standings on that 888 machine. So there we see the front 3 getting very tight together. 3 laps left to go. Ian Jackson in the open class, leading overall, of course, leading in the open class as well, has essentially got the race wrapped up, because the only other open class rider out there is Gary O'Keefe, running P6 overall and a long way behind Jackson. The pair behind him, though, well, they're racing for the class win in the standard class. Sean Whittaker let Team ACME through after a mistake from Team ACME. Wanted to carry on racing. Their last laps, Sean Whittaker of 57.299. Team ACME Racing, fastest lap of the race of 57.298. They are right on the money.
Really pushing each other. I love it. I think Sean Whittaker being behind ACME has sort of unlocked something for the number 8, and also not only being chased by Sean Whittaker, but chasing Ian Jackson for the win has given ACME this sort of boost of confidence and sort of just that instinct that you try and go and find an extra couple of tenths of a second. 2 laps left to go at the line. Penultimate tour of Rowrah for the MotoTeam riders, and Ian Jackson leads from Team ACME from Sean Whittaker. Nose to tail the entire to the top 3. Obviously, there's no points for the 8 or the 01 to overtake the 27. But there are points for the 01 to overtake the 08 and vice versa. So there are 2 races going on here, 1 for pride, 1 for points.
Absolutely. I mean, the open class race is done, presuming that Ian Jackson doesn't bin it and retire. he's going to take home the maximum amount of points regardless if these two get through or not. But the two behind are very much racing for position. Sean Whittaker looking to the inside. ACME a little bit later on the brakes, slams the door shut. But now Ian Jackson's getting in the way a little bit, isn't it? And the number 8's probably thinking, I need to get past soon, or I'm going to get past myself. We're going to be on one lap to go in just a short moment's time. As they come into Paddock Bend, the last lap flag will be held out by Lee Clowes, our flag marshal, and indeed there it is, a one more tour of Rowrah for the Moto team, boys. Ian Jackson has the open win almost completely secure, just has to finish this lap. The two behind though, Team ACME Racing on the number 1 and Sean Whittaker, who looks like it. Oh, Sean Whittaker!
Brake failure, surely.
That's got to be a brake failure, yeah.
He went straight on. I saw that coming from a mile away. He was braking way too deep, straight into the barrier. Down, is he out? Can he limp it home to take the points for second place in the standing class? That releases the top two. And in fact, actually, that's the 65 of Ben O'Keefe knocking on his door. What has happened to that bike? Is he okay? He's looking very slow. The inside opens up for the 64. He drops down to third in the standard. Does Sean Whittaker. Ben O'Keefe goes up into third in the standard. But this is the fight for the overall and respective winners. 1 lap left to go. 1 corner left to go for MotoTeam for what has been a grueling doubleheader, hard racing all the way through. The checker flag waves, and it's the 27 that wins the open class, the overall, and the standard goes the way of Team ACME Racing, less than a quarter of a second behind. But my oh my, heartbreak for Sean Whittaker, who in the end could not contest at all. Claps, smiles, thumbs up all the way through for our two winners as Team ACME Racing respond to the championship charge.
What a run there for Sean Whittaker. What a shame, though, ultimately loses out in 4th place, and despite making that battle with Team ACME Racing, did a great job. But yeah, I'm assuming that was brake failure. Looking at how Ben O'Keefe got through, Sean Whittaker was on the brakes very early, crawling around, so I think either overheating or a problem on that behalf. But Ian Jackson takes the open class win. Team ACME Racing take the standard class win. Ben O'Keefe 2nd, Sean Whittaker 3rd, and Team Ernie the Badger 4th. Gary O'Keefe 2nd, and well, last, but still 2nd out of the open class, guys. Madison MARTLEW was on track, but again, not on our timing sheets. Hopefully there was a transponder on the bike. If not, it'll be no points, nil points. If so, that'll be 5th in the standard class for Madison MARTLEW. Moto team done and dusted here at Rowrah. Of course, in 3 weeks' time, they will be returning as we head proper down south. We're going from one end of the country to the other. We're going to Dorset, going to Clay Pigeon.